It was a strange place. The ruins turned out to be a shop that still seemed to be operating. Inside, several headless skeletons could be seen, perhaps serving as guards. Then Armor King approached and welcomed Bonebone, inviting him to purchase the finest armor of his making. He spoke of how this place had once been a city called Kenshi, 937 years ago. There they bought a masterwork-grade samurai clothpins, a masterwork leather hive vest, a specialist-grade assassin's rags, a specialist-grade iron hat, and a specialist-grade blackened chain hive shirt. After spending a large amount of cats, they quickly left the place. Their next destination was to return to Mongrel. Upon arriving in Mongrel, they headed straight to the Thieves' Guild. There, Bonebone explained his plan. He wanted to return to the Fogman base and willingly offer himself at their sacrificial altar. When the Fogmen started eating his limbs and they eventually came off, he would quickly attach a new robotic limb and escape before anything worse happened. Bonebone was stunned, not because of Bonebone's risky plan, but because he realized he still hadn't shared his own thoughts with him. Until now, Bonebone had never told Bonebone about his plan regarding the United Cities. He didn't know whether Bonebone would agree or support it. When the time was right, Bonebone would tell him everything. From Mongrel, they continued their journey. Along the way, they fought against bandits, and Bonebone looted all the bolts he could find to replenish his supplies. They stopped at the hub for a short rest at the Thieves' Guild. To improve Bonebone's crossbow skill, they set out for Stobe's Gamble. After fighting through many battles along the way, they established a camp there. Bonebone and Softbone rested for a while Bonebone immediately went out to hunt leviathans, massive beasts with enormous health and attacks that could not be taken lightly. Not long after, Bonebone found a leviathan and began his assault. Back at the camp, Bonebone and Softbone were ambushed by a group of Southern Hive. Softbone was knocked down, while Bonebone still held his ground. At times, Bonebone even put away his weapon and fought bare-handed to improve his dodge, martial arts, and dexterity. They also clashed with skeleton bandits from time to time. The camp area was far from safe, but Bonebone and Softbone used every fight as a chance to sharpen their combat abilities. After battling for hours, Bonebone finally brought the leviathan down. Then he moved on to search for another one. Once they felt it was enough, Bonebone regrouped with the others, and they continued their journey to investigate a place high in the mountains. Bonebone needed a name for his clan. He decided to call it dbone. It turned out this secluded place on the mountain was called Spring. Bonebone saw the faction headquarters and entered it. He received a completely unexpected welcome. One of them suddenly shouted, accusing Bonebone of being affiliated with their enemies. Immediately, the others rushed toward him and launched an attack. Bonebone and the others quickly tried to escape. Unfortunately, Bonebone took a heavy blow and passed out. Bonebone and Softbone managed to run out of the area, but the anti-slavers chased after them. Not long after, a flurry of attacks left Bonebone helpless. Softbone panicked and started attacking them. It was clear their level was still far above Bonebone and his group. They were members of the anti-slaver faction, a group that opposed and fought against slavery. Perhaps Bonebone's reputation as a slave trader had already reached their ears, which explained their extremely hostile welcome. Bonebone woke up from being unconscious and quickly treated his own wounds. Then he told Softbone to wait, then ran back into Spring to rescue Bonebone. Bonebone, still inside Spring, was desperately fighting to survive. He was struck down again and again by the anti-slaver soldiers. Bonebone saw Bonebone lying helpless and tried to carry him, but he failed. Both of them lay powerless on the ground. After regaining consciousness, Bonebone quickly picked up Bonebone and ran from the place. Luckily, the anti-slaver soldiers seemed to understand Bonebone's intention and let them go. On their journey, they saw a group of people dressed entirely in black, accompanied by several giant crabs. dbone tried to ignore them and continued walking. However, the group suddenly chased after them and launched an attack. Perhaps the crabs Bonebone had fought before had somehow alerted these people, and now they were seeking revenge for their fallen companions. In the end, dbone had no choice but to fight. The battle was unavoidable. Outnumbered and overpowered, Bonebone and the others were defeated. The black-clad warriors simply left them lying there and walked away. dbone continued his journey to Creepy Outpost. This location served as a base for skeletons who believed they were human. They wore armor designed to resemble human skin. With caution, Bonebone entered one of the buildings. Inside, he found a figure seated on a throne, the leader of this place, a man named Savant, one of the criminals wanted by the United Cities. Slowly, Bonebone closed the door behind him and challenged Savant to a fight. Not long after, Savant fell. Bonebone quickly picked him up and searched his belongings. He found a blueprint called Skeleton Human Transformation Bible, knowledge on how to create a device that could cut off limbs. Bonebone and the others immediately fled the place. They were chased by a group of skin bandits, but they ignored them and kept running. Bonebone started falling behind. Bonebone and Softbone turned back to help him. Together, they managed to defeat the remaining skin bandits. Finally, Bonebone arrived in Heft. Savant was immediately placed in a cage and given some food. He became Bonebone's first prisoner. Bonebone built beds so they could rest properly. Using the engineering research they had obtained earlier, Bonebone finally managed to build a skeleton repair bed. It was a device designed to repair and maintain the robotic limbs attached to his body. Bonebone suggested to Bonebone that they head to Barrier Tower. Word on the street said the best crossbows could be found there. When they arrived at Barrier Tower, they saw a skeleton standing guard on top, ready with its turret to repel any approaching enemies. With high confidence, Bonebone moved ahead, followed closely by Bonebone and Softbone. They quickly entered the tower to take cover. Inside, Bonebone found a masterwork toothpick and a specialist old-world bow. Meanwhile, Bonebone sneaked up to the highest floor and quietly took down the guarding skeletons one by one. From one of the guards, he obtained a specialist eagle's cross. Together with the Old World bow, these two weapons felt more than enough for dbone. To test their abilities, dbone headed to a village belonging to the preacher cult. One by one, they defeated the cult followers until they finally came face to face with the preacher. It didn't take long for dbone to defeat him. Bonebone seized the preacher's moon cleaver but left his body behind. dbone was surprised. There was a bounty on the preacher, yet Bonebone didn't seem to care at all. Their next target was Valaman, whose base was located in a building called Ark. Slowly but surely, dbone advanced. They broke through the outer defenses and managed to reach the second floor. Valaman's forces were numerous. Bonebone was quickly surrounded and attacked from all sides. dbone had no clear shot, while Softbone struggled to keep up. Not wanting to take unnecessary risks, they decided to retreat and exit the Ark. Outside, dbone could finally move freely and attack from a distance. Softbone lay helpless on the ground. dbone quickly picked him up and ran, with Bonebone covering their retreat from behind. Valaman's soldiers continued chasing them. With no other choice, they turned and fought back. Softbone had regained consciousness and was treated by dbone. He immediately rejoined the fight but was quickly overpowered. However, his sacrifice created an opening. dbone struck back fiercely and the enemy fell. One by one, Valaman's soldiers were defeated. Softbone got back up and continued attacking. Finally, the fierce battle came to an end. They found a safe spot and set up camp to recover. The next day, dbone tried attacking Ark again. To weaken the enemy, Bonebone freed the prisoners who had been forced to fight by the Reavers. This time they pushed straight toward Valaman's throne. But unexpectedly, Bonebone fell. dbone carried him and ran to safety. This assault had also failed. For the third attempt, dbone was confident they would succeed. They charged in once more. Valaman's forces had grown weaker. dbone faced Valaman directly, supported by Softbone. They landed a decisive strike, and Valaman finally fell. Bonebone quickly treated Valaman's wounds while dbone helped. Softbone held off the approaching enemies. dbone carried Valaman and they escaped from Ark. Upon arriving in Heft, dbone immediately placed Valaman inside the prison cage and gave him some food. Bonebone built another cage with help from dbone. Finally, Bonebone explained his true plan to dbone. He told him that the bounties they captured would not be handed over to the United Cities Police. They would be far more useful for a much larger plan. Bonebone needed dbone's help to make it happen, and dbone agreed without hesitation. The next destination for dbone was Darkfinger. Word had it that another wanted bounty was hiding there, someone also sought by the United Cities. On their way to Darkfinger, dbone came across an outpost called the Bastion. It turned out this was a base for cannibal hunters. Only then did they realize that the area they were heading into was under the control of the cannibals. dbone continued their journey, and arrived at a cannibal village located on the coastline. Bonebone's target was the meat lord. Beatbone took position on a hill and provided ranged support, while Bonebone and Softbone advanced from below. Without hesitation, they faced the cannibals head-on. Suddenly, a cannibal ambushed Beatbone on the hill. Using his martial arts, Beatbone fought back fiercely. Many cannibals fell. Finally, the meat lord emerged from his hiding place. A decisive strike from Bonebone and Softbone quickly brought him down. While the meat lord was in critical condition, Beatbone immediately picked him up and carried him away from the battlefield. Bonebone and Softbone stayed behind, still busy fighting other cannibals from different clans who were trying to take advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, Meat Lord could not be saved. As an alternative, dbone headed to Dead Cat, where the ruins served as the base for the cannibal Grand Wizard. Using the same tactic, Beatbone positioned himself on higher ground and fired first. However, only one cannibal was lured out. dbone tried to find a better position, but without realizing it, a large group of cannibals had already appeared and attacked them. Beatbone quickly retreated to gain distance. A fierce battle broke out. The cannibals were defeated fairly easily. Bonebone and Softbone quickly advanced toward the main base. From the front gate, Beatbone aimed directly at the Grand Wizard. His first shot missed and hit another cannibal instead. The rest immediately charged forward. Bonebone and Softbone blocked their path. One by one, the cannibals fell. From a distance, Beatbone spotted the Grand Wizard again and continued shooting. Shot after shot landed until the Grand Wizard finally collapsed. Seeing this, Beatbone ran forward, picked him up, and immediately began treating his wounds as he was losing a lot of blood. Bonebone was still busy fighting the remaining cannibals. To end the battle faster, Beatbone helped by attacking from behind. Once everything was under control, dbone quickly left the area. dbone stopped briefly in World's End to buy ammunition. While there, he saw a masterwork old world bow for sale and immediately purchased it. dbone stopped briefly in World's End to buy ammunition. While there, he saw a masterwork old world bow for sale and immediately purchased it. Upon arriving in Heft, Beatbone placed the cannibal Grand Wizard into the prison cage. Now, dbone had 3 bounties held in captivity. After that, dbone continued their journey toward crumbling labs in the Stobbs Gamble area.